Good morning, Racket Athlete fans. We're here for another podcast with the Racket Athlete podcast today. We have on a special guest today, Dr. Monika Gostic. Now, Dr. Monika Gostic is a Ph.D. in research, gut health, nutrition. She's also a powerlifter and a mother as well. Welcome to the show, Monika.
Hi, thank you for having me. Super excited to share my knowledge with you today.
Brilliant. So what I would like to start with then today, Monika, is just really talk about your story, where you've come from, where you are now, and where you're at, and where you're going, essentially.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I feel like this is a podcast for athletes, so maybe I'm going to focus more on my athlete journey rather than the entire weight loss journey that I've done. But just to recap quickly, a lot of people who know me today, they think, oh, well, it's easy for you. You know, you've always been athletic, or you've done this or you've done that. But it couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, my entire life, I was overweight until like my 20s, actually. And I've battled with my mental health, I've battled with my self-worth, my confidence, and with my weight the whole time. I was a typical yo-yo dieter, and workouts, exercise, something like that wasn't really a part of my life, mostly because I was so big that even brisk walk was hard for me. It was very, very difficult to actually do that. And that's something that a lot of people don't really realize when they go on the weight loss journey, or when they sign up with a PT, or when they want to start doing exercise, is that, well, you need to adjust all these things according to the size that you're at, because you don't want to introduce any injuries, you know, like arthritis and any sprains or breaks, because your body's not used to it. So that was me. And of course, I started slowly with the exercise, and I did like what everyone else does, what people tell you to do. I started eating less and exercising more. And I always did that, and I got amazing results, and I felt great until I didn't. Until I crashed and burned and lost all of my energy and fell into like a depressive spell. It was really tough for me. It was, feelings of shame, disappointment. Why can't I stick to a diet? I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. And I didn't even think or dream about being consistent with exercise, because I couldn't keep it up. I had no energy. I had absolutely no possibilities to do that. So fast forward into my 30s, in fact, after I became a mom, I started looking into exercise and healthy lifestyle and all that with a very different perspective. Instead of looking at it as a means of losing weight or getting those calories out that I eaten during Christmas right now, instead of doing it like that, I started looking at my body as what my body wants to move. It's designed to move. The muscles, the bones, they all communicate with each other. There's also the knowledge that I've gained on my journey on microbiome and gut health, and now understanding how exercise and movement actually contributes to optimal gut health and also digestion. So hint, hint, if you ever feel constipated, go for a jog or do some squats, heavy squats, right?
Yeah.
It's going to help.
Yeah.
So all these kind of things kind of came at the right time. And I picked up a bar and I started lifting, and I just realized that this is something that is not just good for my mental health, good for my physical health, but it's also good for longevity of living, of healthy aging, for so many other stuff. And I fell in love with the process. I didn't fall in love with chasing higher goals, as in, oh, lift more, bigger gains, muscle back. I have all that. Yes, this is like a side effect of everything. But
Yeah.
the whole thing for me was, when it happened, that click in my mindset was, well, I'm lifting because I want to be the healthiest possible version of myself every single year. And as I age, I want to be strong, I want to be healthy, and I want to have the energy to play with my child,
Yeah.
which I notice
yeah.
a lot of people in my age, even mid 30s, 40s, they don't have the energy to crawl on the floor and pretend play and allow their children to use them as climbing frames and all of these kind of things. And my daughter does that on a regular, and I'm so grateful that my body is now capable of doing all of that. So this is kind of just a short summary. And yeah, I've now started lifting for Scottish powerlifting. I'm a referee in sport as well. Absolutely love it. And hopefully I'm aiming to get stronger and stronger every single year and start competing on international levels as well.
Brilliant. So one thing I picked up on is a lot of people I come across in my area of exercise science and dealing with clients and stuff is they get this thing mixed up where you talked a bit about the process and not, looking at it in a different way. So breaking it down more and figuring out how the process works. Can you just explain a bit more about how your experience went with that for yourself, and obviously how you work with clients and stuff and how you do that?
Well, the process itself is very different for every single person. And this is why I designed my movement in part of my business, which is called Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And BAD stands for balanced, authentic, and deserving. And the authentic part is really, really important. In fact, I put a post on today about that because you as a person are individual, are unique, are completely different than anyone else. In my business, I focus mostly on nutrition. I deal with exercise just surface wise, but I really go in depth in nutrition because that's my field of excellency. And I'm not even going to pretend that I know about certain parts of exercise science that other people do. So when a client comes to me, or even my own process, the first thing that you need to figure out is why they are where they are. And that's a lot of times overlooked.
Oh yeah.
It's like, well, it's easy to just give you a program, give you a meal plan, give you all of that. You'll stick to it like I did, for 12 weeks, and then you're going to crash and burn, and you're not going to continue unless you're a part of this tiny, tiny percentage of people who develop the discipline and carry on. But if you don't understand what happened in your life that brought you to where you are right now, then you will likely not address that, and you will likely not change these habits. And that's something that's really, really important to know as a first thing. So when people come to me, or also when I was working on myself with the help of others, was like, well, why? Why am I doing this? Why do I want to get healthy? But why am I also here? Why was I 4 stone overweight? How did I get there? What was happening? And it came down to so many things, but it also came down to childhood traumas, to emotional and physical abuse, to the fact that I was using food as my emotional crutch, to so many other things. But now I'm specializing in chronic conditions. So I actually have this in-depth knowledge in how the body works in terms of gut health, immune system, hormonal balance, or let's say imbalance, because that's where we get insulin resistance, all these kind of things. And a lot of times people develop these conditions, or people start getting overweight, not because of something that they've done a few times, but because of a lifetime or decades of treatment, thinking that they're doing something right. But in fact, maybe that was right for them when they were 20. Yeah. It's not right for them when they're 30, and they continue doing it. And then when they're 40, everything goes kaboom. And the body goes like, well, I can't deal with it. So if I go back to your question when you were asking about, the method and all that, I need to know why. I need to figure out what's your triggers, what brought you to the stage in your life that you are right now, what brought you to, if you're just looking to be a better athlete, what is hindering your progress. If it's not the training programming, which a lot of times you have amazing trainers that can give you fantastic programming, but you're just not progressing. And as a person who's worked with coaches myself, obviously I have coaches, how, they've all been excellent coaches. What was the difference between me a few years ago and me now is how I behave outside the training program. And that's really the key information. What do I eat? And I'm not talking about macros here.
No.
I'm not talking just like, oh, eat more protein. That is the basic. That is
Yeah.
honestly generally the basic. But where people are coming to right now is that instead of eating food for optimal gut health, which then leads to optimal immune function, which then
Yeah.
leads to optimal muscle repair,
Yeah.
they just chuck down masses and masses of synthetic protein products
Yeah.
and products that are ultra processed, products that, yes, contain tons of protein and will bring you in terms of a body shape to where you need to be. But then you will most likely down the line, if you continue these kind of behaviors, develop a lot of gastrointestinal problems, which is why I work with a lot of athletes who have IBS
Yeah.
and a lot of athletes who suffer with anxiety, massive anxiety problems. And nowadays, in gut health research, we understand that anxiety and depression are actually not mental health conditions, they are chronic conditions, and they have been directly linked to your gut health.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing in my business. This is how I take athletes forward as well with nutrition. But also people who are not athletes, my clients who struggle with chronic conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I think as well, what you mentioned there about obviously we work together as well, so I totally understand where you come from, all that stuff you just said, especially with mental health. And you agree that mental health can be, obviously, as you just mentioned, is connected to how the gut health is as well.
Yeah. Sorry, was there a question?
Yeah, sorry, it's okay. I'll say it again. What I'm saying is, do you agree, or do you, from your knowledge and your research that you do, that mental health, like anxiety, like stress, like other things that may occur, is related and linked to gut health?
Yes, absolutely. Not just my personal opinion. There's been vast research done on the topic now, but I have noticed from a personal experience and also from experience with my clients that if you eat in a certain way, you will feel a certain way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that everyone can agree with
Oh,
that,
yeah.
especially after Christmas.
Yeah.
You know?
So
yeah.
So let's dive into that then, about what you've just spoken about there with the foods and how it makes you feel, whether it's emotionally or what it actually does to the gut. Then certain type of foods. Let's dig deep into that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Gut health and microbiome right now are buzzwords. So this is something that everyone's looking into, and a lot of research is now finally being done on the topic. So we are discovering more and more. Now, disclaimer here is that you don't know what you don't know. So we're only now uncovering a lot of things that we didn't understand in the past. So just as everything else in life, science is growing, is changing, is developing with new focuses, with new funding available and new interests. We are now diving deep into what gut health actually means. I have supervised master students in clinical nutrition at the university where I study. And one of the master students chose a topic for their thesis on the recovery of athletes based on the whole food intervention versus any other type of intervention. It was very, very interesting. So once it's published, I'm happy to share that. I can't say anything right now. But our body, the way that modern medicine has been treating us and the way that we've responded to that and just took it as a holy grail is that things come in isolation, right? So say you struggle with anxiety and you go to the doctor and they'll prescribe you medication for anxiety. But they're not going to look into anything else. They're not going to look at, well, do you exercise? Do you go for a walk? Do you do any types of mindfulness stuff? A lot of people think mindfulness is ridiculous. I was one of those people, very highly scientific, and I didn't understand how mindfulness can help me with anything. Now I know better. And I understand that it's so important to manage your stress, and mindfulness is definitely a part of that. But no one actually looks into other systems. And if you look at biologically, the brain is directly connected to your gut through a nerve that is the longest nerve in our body. It's called the vagus nerve. And it has endings embedded right on our gut barrier. So you can imagine whatever you eat or drink, ingest in general, even like the air you breathe and all of that, whatever goes into your body is going to be in your gut at some point. And when it's in your gut, there it plays a role. Now I always talk about it as an entire universe. And I love it. It's like a universe inside of our body, inside of our gut. And most of the time, for most people, you've got the Star Wars scenario, right? There's war happening, there's like goodies and baddies, they're fighting each other, they're trying to keep peace, they're trying to win. And when we're talking about microbiome, I'm going to simplify it and talk about bacteria only, but we've got a lot more than just bacteria in there. But you can imagine that we've got the good type of bacteria and the bad type of bacteria. The good ones we call probiotics, right? We like to call them probiotics because we like to add them so that we have more of them. Now, bacteria do this funny dance wherever they are, either in us, on surfaces, wherever they are. They do this funny dance. And this dance is called competition. So whether you have enough of goodies, if you have enough of goodies, they are going to be keeping the bodies in check. So they will not allow the bodies to overgrow, to multiply, to cause mayhem, to do the Star Wars. But a lot of times, and a lot of times by no fault of your own, we tend to have more bodies than goodies. This can happen through chronic stress. It can happen because you've taken antibiotic because you had an infection, which is really important, right? It can happen because you were exposed to a foreign country's food or water that was overchlorinated. It can happen because of so many different reasons. And then suddenly you have too many of bodies. And now the bodies are in charge and they don't allow the goodies to grow, to multiply, to maintain that balance. And now you have this Star Wars scenario. And this is what we call dysbiosis. And when you have this scenario, what happens is that all these bacteria produce metabolites, or what I like to call for my clients is bacterial poop. And that bacterial poop is able to go through the walls of our gut, is able to go into our bloodstream, is able to go and be transferred through nerves into other parts of the body. So you can imagine, because we have the nerve endings of the vagus nerve that goes straight from the brain into your gut, the bacterial poop goes straight to that vagus nerve and gets transferred directly into our brain.
Okay.
So this is where this connection between anxiety, depression, and stress and all of this kind of stuff happens. All of this is bi-directional. So if you feel stressed, even if you're eating clean and you're an athlete and you're amazing, but if you don't manage your stress, your body is going to send these signals down to your gut, and you will eventually develop irritable bowel syndrome or even worse. So this is how this works.
Okay, so that makes a lot more sense to me, and probably how you simplified it is really good as well for the listeners. I think as well with the gut health, can you talk about your experiences so far with your clients, your athlete clients, of how you've made them have more positive effects on their gut with your training, and how it kind of comes up in the science as well?
Well, I didn't do any change in programming. So I took my athletes and they kept the programming that they had from their coaches that deal with exercise programming, and I left that alone. What I worked on was mostly the way that they were eating. And the way that they were eating is also impacting not just their mental health and day-to-day life, but it's also impacting their recovery rate. And it's been actually shown that if you are adhering to certain type of diets, that your recovery is going to be a lot better than if you're just chucking down tons and tons of protein. Now, general population tends to undereat protein. This is why people are constantly talking about eat more protein, eat more protein, eat more protein. However, athletes tend to overconsume protein.
Yeah.
And they think that, 200, 300 grams of protein per day is what they need for recovery, for gains, for whatever. And it's simply not the case. Moderate consumption of protein, even for athletes, has actually resulted in better recovery rates and also in muscle growth. I read a study where women were consuming, well, women and men, but mostly they focused then on the outcome for menopausal women, where they were consuming higher amounts of protein versus moderate amount of protein. And actually the moderate amount of protein for women, menopausal women, resulted in best outcomes, not the high ones.
Overconsumption is not good.
It's the same. We come back to my Breaking Bad. It's the balance here, right? So a lot of times, a lot of people forget about balance, and you can imagine I'm surrounded by powerlifters and strongmen and similar type of people. And when you look at their diet, I mean, they're strong people, incredibly strong, and exercise is really, really important. But living off McDonald's, cheese blocks, and pizzas, all in the name of gains and calories and all of that it will have consequences at some point. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be eating these things at all. Hell, I eat them, of course. We have pizza Fridays every Friday in my house, It's all about that balance again, balance in nutrients, but also balance in behaviors, because you need to find a sustainable way of living for yourself. But it's also way beyond just calories and macros. It goes beyond macros. And a lot of times people are saying, no, macros are enough. They got me to where I am. It's like, yeah, you look fantastic and you're strong, but look at your mental health and look at your skin and look at your other stuff. The skin is usually the indicator of what's happening. The quality of your hair, the smoothness of your skin. A lot of people, when they look at me, and I'm not thin and lean or whatever. I'm strong and I've got muscles, but also I've got a little bit extra fat, which is absolutely fine for a woman of reproductive age. But if you look at me, you see that my skin is so clear that I don't even need to use any makeup because it just shines on its own. And the white in my eyes are so clear that people can see the health immediately when they look at me. It's not all about the body size. It's not all about six packs and muscles. And when you're an athlete, what you want to be focusing on is your performance, unless you're a bodybuilder. That's a whole different story. I'm not even going to talk about that. But when you're focusing on your performance, what you want is to be able to bounce back as soon as possible after a heavy session of training, right? So how quickly can you bounce back? How long are your DOMs for, the delayed onset muscle soreness? How long are you suffering with that? If you're suffering with that for more than a couple of days, well, your recovery is off. You need to figure out how you can recover better. And these are all the points of information that I gather from my athletes. How often do you go to number 2? We need to talk about that a lot, And they call me Dr. Bad because it was just so funny having all these conversations. It's like, okay, I do need to know about these habits. There's no too much information in my business, in my coaching. These are, in fact, crucial points of information for you as a human being to monitor your own health. And once you learn these things, then a lot of things just become a lot clearer, simpler as well, because it's not complicated when you know what you're doing. And it becomes simpler. And then your performance becomes a lot better. I mean, working with chronic conditions, a lot of women I know struggle with female health, like polycystic ovaries, endometriosis. How detrimental that is to your performance only a woman who suffers with it knows, can't even, describe it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you had some sort of support and knows how to eat to support your recovery, to support your chronic condition, to support your hormonal health, to manage your blood sugar, to do all of these kind of things,
Mm-hmm.
then your entire life, plus your performance, plus your recovery, are going to be optimized, and you're going to have a higher quality of life.
Okay, that's brilliant. So what I've picked up on a couple of things there I'd like to go back to is blood sugar.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just talk about it generally first, and then take it into an athlete perspective about blood sugar and how it should be managed.
Yes, absolutely. So blood sugar is a big topic because a lot of people don't realize what is happening. It's like what they say, that saying, far from eyes, far from mind, or something like that. Out of sight, out of mind. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
So that's what's happening with nutrition a lot of times, because you don't see what's happening inside your body, so you don't care and you don't think about it. So blood sugar is actually really obvious. And when you eat and after a meal, you've had this like food coma, we call it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you're just like,
Yeah.
I'm so full, I can't move, I'm gonna burst. That's food coma, right? You just want to sleep and do absolutely nothing because you've eaten so much. That is actually your body focusing all the energy and intention into digesting the foods that you brought in, and also managing the blood sugar rise. So every single time you eat or also drink, you trigger your blood sugar, you trigger your insulin levels every single time. It doesn't matter what you eat. If you eat fats, if you eat protein, if you eat carbs, it doesn't matter, because it all in the end gets processed and utilized, and any excess of food gets then turned into, obviously, reserves, extra energy, and deposited in our fat cells. But that all comes, I'm going to oversimplify it again, that all comes with the raising of the blood sugar. A lot of people think, oh, well, if I eat protein and there's no actual sugar in that, I'm eating protein, so that's all fine. And they eat keto diet, like high protein, high fat. But actually, it's not true. Protein raises blood sugar as well. It's got nothing to do with just carbs. Carbs are not the enemy. It's how you eat. So actually, carbs for athletes are your best friends, because
Yeah.
they're
Oh yeah.
more of your quick source of energy. So you want to have a banana and a coffee before training, and then you just fly. You just go.
Yeah.
People go for calories, and they're like, oh no, banana has calories, so I'm just gonna take a sugar-free Monster. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? Now we know that these things also raise blood sugar. Now we know that the 0 calorie actually produces a very similar response to the drink that contains sugar in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that with the 0 sugar, you get 0 calories, so your body gets 0 energy. However, with the sugar, you actually get the energy and you utilize it. And then the 0 sugar one leads to a dip, and people tend to over consume afterwards,
Yeah.
and they tend to compensate for that, and the body tends to behave in a different way. So just because it's 0 sugar, just because it's 0 calorie, doesn't mean it's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's same for diabetics. Sorry, I digress again, but it's same for
It's fine. I
diabetics.
was going to comment that topic anyway, so let's go for it.
Yeah, it's like, people think, oh, well, I'm diabetic, I should eat carbs. Well, that is simply not true. It's not true. What you need to learn is how to eat to manage your blood sugar.
Yeah.
And in fact, I actually am sending to my email list shortly a guide on how to manage your diet if you're pre-diabetic and diabetic. So I send this to my email list quite frequently. So if you want some free resources on how to manage your nutrition as an athlete or as a human being, then make sure that you get yourself subscribed onto my email list. But coming back to blood sugar is something that is going to be triggering hormonal response in your body. Now, the first hormone, and probably the only hormone most people talk about, is insulin. And that's what we know quite a lot about. So I'm not going to touch on insulin too much. But insulin is what allows the sugar to be transported in and out of cells. And at some point, because of the way that we're living and eating, we start causing insulin to malfunction. And either it gets shot out too much or it doesn't get shot out enough. And that's where we start getting these weird symptoms like sugar rush, sugar crashes, you start getting brain fog. Insulin is connected to other hormones. So when I'm working with female athletes and your performance is dependent on your cycle as it is, then when you don't have managed insulin, you will also not have your estrogen managed. You won't have your testosterone managed. You won't have anything managed. It will all go out of sync, and it will start impacting your performance and your recovery and everything in between. Now, you're not a woman yourself, so you probably don't know firsthand.
Don't understand, but
but you know, if you've ever had a woman in your life who suffers with PMD, premenstrual depression, not just the syndrome, that's the time where our hormones get so messed up that we could be clinically crazy. And I'm not even joking.
okay.
Like, I was also at the point where every month, around the same time of the month, I wanted to break up with my partner. Not that he did anything wrong, it's just the hormones were absolutely causing havoc. They were just crazy, absolutely crazy. And you can't do anything about it. It's not that we're crazy, it's our biology is going mental inside, and you have no power over that at that time. But what you do have power over is once you're out there, out of this stage, to start addressing what's actually happening. And that's what I did for myself as well. Like, start to changing your diet, start changing your behaviors, start changing the way that you manage your blood sugar and insulin levels. And then with that, your other hormones are going to fall back in line. And also your digestion is going to improve, everything else is going to go, bloating is going to go away like significantly. And you're just going to become this new woman that is going to be able to deal with a lot of stuff. It's not easy to be a female athlete as is, you know. Like you try and squat 150 kilos when you're bleeding. It's
yeah.
So we're already dealing with all of this stuff, but we're making it harder for ourselves because we don't take into account that blood sugar and the way that we eat and insulin are also directly connected to our other hormones and to also to the function of our thyroid, which I know you're personally interested as well. But there's a lot of men who struggle with thyroid, either hyper or hypo. And thyroid, what I always say is that it's not normally a thyroid issue. The thyroid is the symptom of an issue that's happening inside of the body. So find that direct issue and you will fix your thyroid function, because thyroid is what is the manager. You know, that gland is the manager inside of your body. It's like, oh, something's not working, so it produces T4, T3. Or I said, oh, this is off TSH, right? So it's all these kind of things that are happening, but it's kind of this manager that is managing the situations inside the body together with insulin. So if you're not living according to your body, and if you're not taking care of what your body needs, which is very different from individual to individual, then you will eventually develop anxiety, thyroid issues, diabetes, IBS, and similar. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. Yeah, definitely. So I was actually going to quickly go into something else. So obviously people that are going to be listening to this and maybe thinking, okay, how do I start making small changes to my nutrition, whether I'm an athlete and whatever sport they're doing, doesn't really matter. If they're an athlete and they're sitting there thinking, how do I start with all this information and how do I take small changes and make some changes to make healthier choices?
Well, first of all, connect with me.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And get to my membership, which is really, really easy to implement. So it doesn't really it doesn't clash with your programming. So if you already have a coach, I will not clash with what they're saying. I will clash with their nutrition because they're most likely not qualified for that, the way that I am, but I will not clash with the exercise at all. However, you will optimize the way that you're eating around your training and during the rest days as well. It's like everything from carb cycling to protein cycling to fats to just general. But the things that you can do right now after listening this podcast is you can start drinking more water, which 95% of people I know don't. As simple as that. Honestly, it's like people say, "Oh, well, I drink enough," and then when they actually start measuring, it's like, "Oh, maybe I just drink 1 liter," and then the rest is just coffees. It says me with a massive mug of coffee right now, but but on top of that, I have a 2 liter water bottle that I make sure I finish every single day. So find yourself a measurement system to know, to follow your progress. Actually, how much have you been drinking? If that is a liter water bottle, then you need to drink 2 of those. If that is a half a liter, then you need to go through 4. And you can say, right, I'm going to finish one before 10. I'm going to finish the other one before 1, the next one before 3, and the next one before 5, and I'm done. And then you can have your coffee in between if you want. That's not a problem. But you need to get your water. Water is so incredibly important for everything. You know? So that's the first step. The second step, I would say, is eat your goddamn veggies.
That's a tough one, right?
Oh my goodness. It's like when I'm working with athletes or just in general with adult people, I am shocked over and over how they behave like children. A lot of times. I don't like vegetables. Well, I know that you don't like it, but you have to have it.
Your body needs it.
It's like when I speak to my 8-year-old daughter, it's the same thing. Well, okay, if you don't like mushrooms, that's fine. Let's find a different vegetable that will give you the benefit of, all the good nutrients that are in there, but with a different flavor. Or things like that. It's just you need to find solutions. If you don't like broccoli, that's fine. I hate kale. I don't eat kale, and it's so healthy for you. It's so healthy for you. I don't eat it, but I make sure that I eat a variety of other dark leafy greens that I'm bringing to my body what my body actually needs, and you can find kale. So there are ways around it, but please start eating your vegetables. And that doesn't mean just peas and carrots with your steak. That means a variety, at least 5 to 7 different types of vegetables every single day. Now, when you hear about this right now, you mean like, oh my God, that's mental. How will I include that? But you start with one. And if you don't need vegetables at all, and you find one that you like and you start eating that one, and that's already, progress. That's already progress. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, I can deal with that one. I now like carrots. Yay me. That's amazing. I found a way to make carrots that I will actually eat. Fantastic. Okay, what's next? Right. Can I then try and taste some beans? There's such a variety of beans that a lot of people have a lot of problems with beans. I can tell you all about it, but just not on this podcast. But just start slow and start introducing vegetables. And that could not go more basic than this. And vegetables contain fiber, contain water, contain phytonutrients, which are directly translated nutrients from a plant, phytonutrients. So our body contains tons and tons of bacteria that have been put into us to digest these kind of foods. And these type of bacteria are being fed by by fiber. You don't get fiber from animal products anyway. So they're fed by fiber. And then when they're fed by fiber, their bacterial poop, it's actually a short chain fatty acid, which is one of the most important fatty acids that we need. And it's called butyrate. And we probably heard about butyrate and how important it is for overall health, for brain health, for everything, right? For immune system. That gets produced by our bacteria inside of our gut after you've eaten
vegetables.
So you don't need to go and buy expensive supplements, because the first thing that people then tell me is like, oh, you can buy butyrate in a pill. Like, or you can eat your carrots. And you're gonna get
Yeah,
other benefits through it as well, and not
yeah,
just mentioning the regularity of your toilet habits as well. So that's number two. And then number three, do your mobility. A lot of athletes forget about mobility work, especially strength athletes,
yeah, yeah,
athletes who cross train. It's incredibly important for you to train for your sport, yes, 100%. But your body is not an isolated box, right? So if I'm training for powerlifting, which consists of squat, bench press, and a deadlift, I'm not just going to work out on a squat, bench press, and a deadlift. These are my three main workouts, yes, absolutely, and I make sure that they are incorporated in my every training. But around that, I make sure that I support this with the smaller weights and higher reps movements, building shoulders, building lats, making sure that I've got strong calves, that my abs
stability.
are well, stability, ooh, big one, balance, a lot of yoga poses,
Hmm.
a lot of hip openers, for example. So
Yeah,
mobility is incredibly important for your range of motion, for injury prevention, and just for
definitely.
health, body health
Yeah,
in
of
general.
course. Yeah,
You can't overlook that. So these are my top three: water, veggies, and mobility. If you incorporate that right now, you're gonna start seeing amazing results. But I do highly recommend, obviously, to join my membership,
hmm,
because that's where I can get you one-to-one. And I do coach through an app. It's super easy. There's an app on the phone. You can log in your food diary, you log in your exercise, and you get tons of resources that you need every single month. I've just sent out to my membership before this podcast an email full of recipes and meal plans for busy people.
oh yeah,
So, something that you can incorporate right now on the go. If you're busy, you don't need to worry about extra work and make it work for you in your life. And this is why it's so important that you incorporate Breaking Bad, because you need to be balanced, authentic, and deserving. And that's it.
yeah. What I was actually going to ask you, Monica, do you have any books in the pipeline?
I don't.
Okay.
I'm being asked this question, so clearly I'm going to have to start working on that.
Yeah, that's obviously in the manifestation.
Yes. No,
Um,
I don't have any that I'm writing. I'm simply too busy at the moment
yeah,
building
yes,
with various courses that I offer for my clients. So
yeah,
right now we are in the start of a fibromyalgia solutions course. So if any of the athletes struggle with fibromyalgia, or they probably have people they know who do,
yeah.
then please get with me, because that's what we're starting this quarter. Um, but perhaps the book will come in the next 5 years. Breaking Bad, definitely something that people are wanting. They are
Yeah,
listening, they are taking notes, they're applying. The amount of
it's good.
people on my social media that come and contact me out of the blue, they're like, sorry,
Yeah,
I've never spoken to you before, but I follow you and I've incorporated what you said and you've changed my life. And I get these messages very frequently,
yeah,
and that's just like, you know what, this makes everything worth it.
yeah.
I'm making people's lives better.
Positive impact, right?
Exactly. And that's what I want to spread. And this is why I'm also recruiting people into my Breaking Bad movement, such as yourself, and other people around. It's really important for me to get people on board who resonate with the message and will help me spread it to their clients and their clients and their clients,
Yeah,
so that they can really make this butterfly effect of, we need to personalize everything. It's no blueprint for health.
yeah,
You and you need to go beyond just counting calories and over exercising, because that is leading you down a rabbit hole and it's not fun.
yeah. So finally, Monica, where can people find you? Obviously, you've got a lot of social media platforms, things like that. Where's the best option for people to find you and connect?
I'm everywhere. So if you simply Google my name, Dr. Monika Gostic, and it's probably going to be written in this podcast as well. If you Google my name, you will find your favorite platform. I do spend a lot of time on Facebook and Instagram, so you're very welcome to just send me a message there. Not scary, even though that I'm all Dr. Bad. I am quite happy to chat. There is no such thing as a stupid question. So please do come and speak to me wherever you are. But if you want to get on my email list and start getting notifications and start getting freebies and all of that kind of stuff, then make sure that you go on to smoothies.drmonikagostic in one word.com. And then you're going to find the website where you put your email in and you will have the smoothies delivered in your inbox. And this is how you put yourself on my email list. And then every time I send something over, which is today after this podcast, you will then benefit lots of free resources, interesting facts, information, and also opportunities to be the first one to sign up for exclusive offers.
Yeah, great. And I also recommend the smoothies because Monica sent them to me as well. So, yeah, and there's a nice few different, nice colourful ones you can try.
Yeah, all about that recovery, beating the inflammation.
Okay, Monica, thank you for your time today.
And thank you for having me. Bye.
No problem. Okay, folks, that's another episode of the Racket Athlete podcast, and we'll speak to you soon.